Chapter 1. The Ghost of Stephanie. The scent of lilies and damp earth hung heavy in the air, a perfume of sorrow that clung to the clearing as though it had seeped into the soil itself. The Silvercrest pack gathered in silence beneath a sky veiled in gray, the clouds swollen with unshed rain. It was the 5th year they had stood here, on this exact date, to remember their Luna. James Anderson stood at the front, tall and unyielding, his black suit pressed to perfection, though the drizzle had begun to bead across the fabric of his shoulders. Behind him, the marble statue of Stephanie, his Stephanie, rose from its stone pedestal. The sculptor had captured her beauty with painstaking care, the curve of her lips in a gentle smile, the proud lift of her chin, the hair that spilled over her shoulders like molten gold. 5 years had passed since the night she died, yet the memory still cut as sharply as if it had happened yesterday. The screaming, the snarling, the smell of blood in the air so thick it coated his throat. And Lily. Always Lily. James's jaw tightened as his gaze swept over the sea of black-clad wolves. Pups clung to their mother's hands, their curious eyes scanning the statue they were too young to remember in life. Elders stood ramrod straight, their faces carved with grief. Every year, this was the same, the air thick with mourning, the silence loud enough to choke on. He cleared his throat, and the pack's attention shifted toward him. His voice was deep, steady, but carried an undercurrent of weight that never seemed to leave him. 5 years ago, we lost not just our Luna, but the heart of this pack. Stephanie was more than my mate. She was our light, our shield, the bond that kept us strong. We honor her today and every day by living the values she embodied. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, soft as wind through the trees. James swallowed against the lump in his throat. He never spoke of the details here. He didn't tell them that Stephanie had died with her sister in her arms, shoving Lily out of harm's way. He didn't say how part of him had never been able to forgive Lily for surviving when Stephanie had not. From the corner of his eye, he caught movement. Lily stood at the back of the crowd, as she always did during the memorial, slightly apart, head bowed, her hands clasped in front of her. She wore black, but where others looked solemn, she seemed almost spectral, like a ghost that didn't belong among the living. Her golden hair was pulled into a simple braid, a paler shade than her sister's but still carrying that same glint when the light hit. It struck him, not for the first time, how much of Stephanie he saw in her, same delicate cheekbones, same graceful carriage. But her eyes. Stephanie's had been a bright, sparkling blue. Lily's were green, muted and deep, like moss beneath forest shade. And those eyes always held something Stephanie's never had, quiet resignation. He tore his gaze away. To the moon goddess, he finished, we give thanks for the time we had with her. And to the moon goddess we pray for her eternal rest. The words fell into the stillness, echoed once by the crowd before fading entirely. When the ceremony ended, the pack began to drift toward the feast tables set beneath the pavilion. Laughter would return there, tentative and fragile, but James rarely joined them. Instead, he remained by the statue, one hand resting on the cold marble, tracing the carved line of Stephanie's cheek. "You'd hate what I've become," he murmured. "But I'm doing my best. I don't know how else to keep them together without you." The air shifted. He turned. Lily was only a few feet away now, her eyes on the statue. Her voice was soft when she spoke. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't," he said, perhaps too sharply. "I was just leaving." She glanced at him briefly. "You speak of her like she's still here." "She is," he replied, the words cutting sharper than intended. "In ways you wouldn't understand." Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. She turned to leave, and that's when it happened. The scent hit him first. Sweet. Warm. Intoxicating. It filled his lungs like fire and lightning all at once. His wolf surged so violently inside him that his knees almost buckled. Mate. His heart pounded in his chest. The air between them thickened, charged with something ancient and undeniable. The pull toward her was magnetic, primal, fierce. Lily froze, her breath catching. Her wide green eyes met his, and he knew she felt it too. "No," he whispered, horror threading through the word. "This isn't." "Yes," she breathed, her voice trembling but sure. The world tilted under his feet. His wolf roared its approval, clawing to get closer to her. But James's mind rebelled, refusing to accept what the bond was telling him. This was wrong. This was impossible. Stephanie had been his mate. His Luna. His one true bond. And yet, the moon goddess had placed Lily before him now. He stepped back, the movement sharp, as if distance could break the connection surging between them. This is some kind of mistake. The way Lily flinched at his words sent a pang through him, one he quickly smothered. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. She simply stared at him for a long, heavy moment, then turned on her heel and walked away, her braids swaying against her back. James stood rooted to the spot, breathing hard, every muscle in his body tense. His wolf howled inside him, furious at his retreat. But James Anderson had spent 5 years building walls around his heart, and he would not tear them down for the sister of the woman whose ghost still haunted him. Not now. Not ever. Chapter 2. The Rejection. Lily's footsteps echoed through the packhouse hallway, the sound swallowed quickly by the thick rugs. Her hands were trembling, though she kept her head high. She didn't need a mirror to know her cheeks were pale, her lips pressed thin. The mate bond still pulsed faintly in her veins, like an ember she couldn't shake off. She hated how it made her want to turn around, to run back to him, to demand an explanation. But she knew better. She had dreamed of meeting her mate for as long as she could remember. Someone who would see her, choose her, not because she was Stephanie's little sister, not out of pity, not as an afterthought. Instead, the moon goddess had handed her the one man who had spent 5 years looking at her like a living reminder of everything he'd lost. In the council chamber, the elders were already gathered for the post-memorial meeting. James stood at the head of the long oak table, sleeves rolled up now, his tie loosened. His dark eyes found hers immediately, and hardened. "Lily," Elder Corbin greeted warmly, unaware of the crackling tension between them. "You're just in time to—" "I need to speak," Lily interrupted, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. All eyes turned toward her. She could feel James's gaze like a brand on her skin, but she refused to meet it. Instead, she addressed the elders directly. "I found my mate today." The ripple of surprise in the room was immediate. She let the words hang there for a heartbeat before continuing. "It's James." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the elders seemed momentarily stunned. Then the whispers began. "That can't be right. The moon goddess. Surely not." Elder Corbin looked between them, frowning. "Well, this is—" "I reject him," Lily said clearly, cutting him off. A sharp intake of breath swept through the chamber. James's wolf snarled inside him, but his lips curved into a cold, humorless smile. "You don't have to bother, Lily," he said, his voice like steel. "I accept." The words landed like a physical blow. She'd prepared herself for it, had known, deep down, that he wouldn't fight for her, but hearing it aloud was worse than she imagined. "Good," she replied, though her voice cracked slightly. "Then it's settled." She turned to leave, but James's voice stopped her. "Leaving so soon? That's unlike you." She glanced back over her shoulder, meeting his eyes for the first time since the bond had snapped into place. "I won't spend my life in your shadow, James. Or hers. Whatever the moon goddess intended, it's not this." And then she walked out, each step a declaration. That night, Lily packed. The moon was high by the time she slipped from her small room into the quiet corridors. The packhouse felt heavier than usual, the air thick with the sense of home she'd grown up with, sense she would soon leave behind. She'd almost made it to the front door when a low voice came from the shadows. "You're leaving," James said. Not a question. She froze. "I am." "You're running away," he corrected, stepping into the moonlight. His hair was slightly damp, as if he'd just come in from the rain. His expression was unreadable. "I'm saving myself," she countered. His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Instead, he stepped closer, close enough for her to feel the heat radiating from him. The mate bond thrummed painfully between them. "You think rejecting me will make it easier?" he asked quietly. "You think leaving will stop this?" She swallowed hard, willing herself not to falter. "No. But staying would kill me." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, something raw and unguarded, but it was gone in an instant. He stepped back. "Go then," he said, voice flat. The border guards will be informed." She nodded once and walked past him, her heart breaking with each step. Outside, the night was cold, the forest stretching endlessly ahead. Somewhere beyond those trees lay a future where she was more than Stephanie's shadow. She just had to survive long enough to find it. Chapter 3: Secrets of the Past. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the packed land slick and quiet. James stood on the balcony outside his office, staring at the forest beyond. Somewhere out there, Lily was gone, vanished into the rival Redstone Pack's territory before dawn. He told himself it was for the best. He told himself the moon goddess had made a mistake, that the rejection was mercy for them both. But his wolf wouldn't stop pacing inside him, restless, snarling, hurting. "Alpha!" The voice pulled James back. Beta Marcus stood in the doorway, his face drawn tight. "There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." James frowned. "Who?" "Elder Rowan. From the old council." The name stirred old memories. Rowan had been pack shaman once, a quiet man who'd stepped down not long after Stephanie's death. James hadn't seen him since. Minutes later, the elder shuffled into the office, his gray hair pulled back, his robes still smelling faintly of herbs and smoke. His sharp eyes studied James with unsettling intensity. "You've been told lies," Rowan said without preamble. James's brows knit. "What are you talking about?" Rowan sank into the chair opposite him. 5 years ago, you believed Stephanie was your mate because the bond was shaped, altered. The words hit James like a blow. "That's not possible. The mate bond can't be faked." "Not faked," Rowan said quietly. "Redirected. There was a political need at the time, 2 packs to unite, and Stephanie's parents feared the bond would not fall where they wanted. So I was asked to perform a ritual. I regret it now, more than anything." James's pulse pounded. "You're telling me Stephanie wasn't my true mate?" "She cared for you," Rowan said gently, "but she knew in the end. That night, when she died, she told me with her last breath that she had only ever been a bridge. That your true mate would need you more than she ever had." James gripped the edge of his desk until the wood creaked. Images of that night flooded back, Stephanie shielding Lily, her body crumpling under the rogue's claws. "Lily!" His wolf let out a guttural growl inside him, as if the truth had just unlocked something feral. The rejection slammed back into him with a new kind of pain, because now he knew it hadn't been a mistake. Lily was his mate. The only one. And he had let her walk away. 2 days later, James crossed the border into Redstone territory. The Redstone Pack's warriors flanked him, tense and watchful, their alpha's permission granted only because of old treaties. They led him to the training grounds, where a group of wolves was sparring under the early afternoon sun. His eyes found her instantly. Lily, her braids swinging as she pivoted away from a strike, her movements sharper, more confident than he remembered. She looked free. When she spotted him, her expression didn't falter, but her eyes cooled into polished green glass. "James," she said, straightening. "You're far from home." He took a step closer, ignoring the way Redstone warriors bristled. "We need to talk." She tilted her head slightly. "Do we? I thought we said everything that needed saying." "Not everything," he said, his voice low. "There's something you need to know. About Stephanie. About us." Her shoulders tensed, but her tone remained calm. "And what good would that do now?" "Because I made a mistake," he admitted. "A big one. And I'm not leaving here without trying to fix it." She studied him for a long, heavy moment. "Careful, Alpha," she said at last. "You sound like a man about to start begging." "If that's what it takes," he replied, "I will." Before she could respond, a figure stepped up beside her, a tall, broad-shouldered man with dark hair and eyes that burned with barely disguised challenge. His arm brushed Lily's as he spoke. "Is this the Alpha who made you cry?" he asked her, his voice deep, smooth, and dangerous. Lily didn't answer. James's wolf bristled instantly, the urge to bare his teeth nearly overwhelming. "And you are?" "Darius," the man said evenly. "Beta of Redstone. And unlike some, I know how to treat a woman worth fighting for." The words landed between them like a gauntlet thrown. Lily exhaled slowly, Her gaze locked on James. "You wanted to talk? Then talk, Alpha Anderson. But know this, Darius has already said more in 2 days than you have in 5 years." James's jaw clenched. His wolf roared inside him. The fight for his mate had just begun. Chapter 4. Claiming the Truth. The Redstone training grounds emptied quickly after Darius's challenge. The tension in the air had been thick enough to choke on, and the pack warriors clearly wanted no part in the storm brewing between two alphas. Lily stood with her arms crossed, her eyes flicking between James and Darius like she was weighing the worth of each man. "You have 5 minutes," she said at last, turning and walking toward the quieter edge of the grounds. James followed, his steps heavy. Darius didn't move from where he stood, but James could feel the man's stare burning into his back. They stopped beneath a sprawling oak, its branches casting shifting shadows across the grass. Lily kept her gaze on the horizon. "Stephanie wasn't my mate," James said without delay. Her head tilted slightly, but she didn't look at him. "You told the entire pack she was." "I believed she was," he admitted. "Until 2 days ago." Finally, her green eyes slid to his. "What changed?" "Elder Rowan told me the truth. That my bond to Stephanie was altered by a ritual. A political arrangement." Her expression was unreadable, but the air between them shifted. "And you expect me to believe that?" "I don't expect anything from you," he said quietly. "But I need you to know, what I felt the day I saw you at the memorial wasn't a mistake. You are my mate, Lily. You've always been." She laughed once, bitter and low. "You have a strange way of showing it." "I panicked," he admitted, forcing the words out. "I've spent years mourning someone I thought was my other half, only to learn that I was wrong. I let my grief and guilt blind me. I hurt you because I didn't want to face that I'd already failed you once." Her brow furrowed. "Failed me? That night? Stephanie died saving you. I saw you as the reason she was gone. It was easier to keep that wall between us than to admit I couldn't protect either of you." The silence stretched. Lily's hands clenched and unclenched at her sides. "You think saying this now fixes it?" she asked finally. "You think the truth erases 5 years of glares and whispers? Of being the shadow of your perfect Luna?" "No," he said. "But it's a start. And I'm not going to stop trying." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You should. I'm not interested in being your redemption arc, James." She turned to leave, but his hand shot out, catching her wrist. The mate bond flared, hot and immediate, making them both still. "Then be my future," he said, his voice low, raw. Her eyes searched his, and for a heartbeat, he thought he saw something soften there. Then she pulled her wrist free. "Darius is waiting," she said simply, and walked away. Over the next week, James refused to leave Redstone territory. He joined their training sessions, sparring alongside warriors who eyed him with suspicion. He volunteered for patrols. He made himself impossible to ignore. Sometimes, Lily would glance his way. Sometimes, she wouldn't. But slowly, she began to speak to him outside of necessity. Short conversations at first, then longer ones during evening runs with the warriors. One night, after a grueling sparring match, they found themselves walking side by side back toward the packhouse. The moon was high, casting silver light over the clearing. "You fight differently here," Lily remarked. "I fight to protect you," James replied. She shook her head. "That's not your job anymore." "Then let me make it my choice," he said. They stopped beneath the packhouse steps. The air between them was charged, the mate bond thrumming like a live wire. He reached for her cheek, brushing a strand of hair back. She didn't pull away, but her eyes stayed guarded. "James," she began. "Just tell me there's nothing left between us," he murmured. "If you can say it, I'll walk away." She opened her mouth, but no words came. Before she could answer, a howl split the night, sharp, urgent. Redstone warriors poured from the building, shouting about rogue sightings near the northern border. Darius appeared at Lily's side, his hand on her arm. "Stay here," he ordered. "No," she said, her gaze dotting between Darius and James. "I'm coming." James's wolf surged at her defiance, pride flaring hot in his chest. The three of them ran into the night, the battle for Lily's heart now shadowed by a fight for survival. Chapter 5. Shadows in the Blood Moon. The night air hung thick with the smell of pine and something darker, like iron and smoke, lingering beyond the forest's edge. The pack's bonfire roared in the center of the clearing, flames licking high into the obsidian sky. It should have been a night of unity, a gathering to celebrate the bond between Alpha and Luna. But the truth was an unspoken ghost between every flicker of light. James stood tall beside the fire, his expression a calculated mask. He had spent weeks chasing Lily, apologizing in 1,000 ways words could never fully express. He'd fought rogues, stood against pack elders, and risked his position as Alpha just to convince her to return. Now she was here, but not because she wanted to be. She stood across from him, shoulders squared, eyes a mix of ice and embers. The moon's glow kissed her dark hair, giving her an almost ethereal beauty that made James' chest ache. But her expression made it clear, she wasn't his to claim. Not yet. The pack members ringed them in silence, tension straining every breath. No one had forgiven her. Whispers floated like embers. She's the reason Stephanie's gone. She'll never replace her. James clenched his jaw, ready to silence them, when Elder Marek stepped forward. Alpha, his gravelly voice cut through the crowd, we cannot ignore what happened. The moon goddess gave you a mate before, Stephanie. Her death marked us all. And now, her sister. He let the word hang, heavy with suspicion. Lily didn't flinch. I didn't choose this, she said, her voice carrying over the clearing. I didn't ask for the moon goddess to bind me to a man who loved my sister first. But I will not stand here and let you paint me as a curse. Not anymore. Something inside James swelled with pride at her defiance, but before he could speak, the wind shifted. A sharp, acrid scent sliced through the clearing. Wolves stiffened. Warriors tensed. James' instincts roared, rogues. Form a perimeter, he barked, already shifting to his wolf in a blur of silver fur and muscle. But as the warriors moved, shadows detached from the tree line, not ragged, desperate rogues, but organized, eyes glowing with unnatural red light. Lily's breath caught. Those weren't ordinary wolves. They were bigger, faster, something else. And standing at their center was a figure cloaked in black, a smirk cutting across his face like a blade. James Anderson, the stranger called, his voice like poisoned honey, you stole what was mine. James' hackles rose, but the figure's gaze slid past him, straight to Lily. I've come, he said, his smile widening, to take my mate back. The air froze. Lily's heart slammed against her ribs. Around her, the pack erupted into chaos. James snarled, muscles coiling for attack, but deep inside, a chilling truth clawed at him. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. And under the looming blood moon, the bond between them was about to be tested in a way neither could survive.